وبعد. All praises due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord and Sustainer of the universe. We beseech and implore Him to forgive our sins and mistakes, and to offer His most salient and potent blessings and salutations upon His last and final Prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon his kin, his companions, and all those who follow his guidance to the last day. He has left for us a clear, pristine path, its day as its night, and all those who waver from it will find nothing but destruction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Quran, وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ. Remind them of the days of Allah. And we are in the blessed days of the first month of 1,438 years after the hijrah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the month of Muharram. And these days in this particular month are blessed because we recall blessed things that happened within them. The Prophet ﷺ, when he arrived to Medina, and he found that the Jewish tribes who had been living there for much time before him were fasting the 10th of Ashura. And when he asked them, why do you fast this day? They said, this is the day that Moses led us, or led our people out of Egypt from Pharaoh. And the Prophet ﷺ replied back, نَحْنُ أَوْلَى مِنْكُمْ بِمُوسَى عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ, or كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, that we have more right to Moses than you do. And so the Prophet ﷺ here is indicating for us that any victory against wrongdoing, against oppression, is a victory for him, is a victory for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't say that's the Jewish prophet, or he was leaving the tribes of Israel, so it's not applicable to us. Rather, he said, نَحْنُ أَوْلَى مِنْكُمْ. We have more right to this. And this is a theme that we find in the Sunnah in general. Prophet ﷺ is also reported to have said, الْحِكْمَةُ ضَالَةُ الْمُؤْمِنِ أَيْنَمَا وَجَدَا فَهُوَ أَوْلَى بِهَا. That wisdom is the lost property of the believer. Wherever he may find it, then he has more right to it. And he also said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, اطلبوا العلم ولو في الصين. And he also said, seek knowledge even though you may find it in China. And China was not a community or continent of believers. But nevertheless, the Prophet ﷺ said, seek knowledge even in China. So we are not some small type of tribe that only tries to listen to our own echo chamber and what we think we know is right. We should be open to the idea that others may have wisdom, that others may have something to impart to us. And one of the lessons of Ashura, one of the lessons of the Prophet ﷺ, is that when there is good, when there is right, it's an occasion for remembrance. And the way that the Prophet ﷺ commemorated special days is that he would fast them on occasion. So when he found the Jews fasting Ashura, he too fasted it. And he said, if I were to live to the next year, I would fast both the 9th and the 10th to differentiate ourselves from the Jewish tribes. And he did not make it to the next year, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But it remains a sunnah for us to fast either the 9th or 10th, corresponding to next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, or the 10th and 11th, which would be Wednesday and Thursday. And it was the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to commemorate special days, momentous days, whether in the earth or in the heavens, by fasting them. When he was asked, why do you fast on Mondays? He would say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, هَذَا يَوْمٌ وُلِدْتُ فِيهِ. This is the day that I was born, so I commemorate it. Right? Not commemorate in a selfish sense, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّمَا بُعِثَ رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. He was not sent except as a mercy to the world. So since he is a mercy to the world, that is an occasion for celebration. Likewise, when he learns of the Jewish tribes that were fasting and Moses leading his people out of oppression, that's also a commemoration, a significant day, an important day that one would fast. And the Prophet ﷺ also said about Mondays and Thursdays specifically, he said these would be the days that our deeds are raised to the heavens. And so we would also commemorate those days by fasting. And so we have a connection, we have a link between what happens down here on the earth and what happens in the realm we can't perceive. And one of the ways to commemorate that particular link is by offering good works. It's by worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every day in Surah Al-Fatiha we remember that this existence of ours is bigger than we are. It's bigger than just what we see on the earth. it is bigger than even beyond our wildest imagination. So as a result, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us specific and special opportunities like the days of Muharram, then these are days which we should remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لكم وسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه فإنه تاب من ذنب كما نزل من بلاء. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة وتم التسليمات على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا مولانا وحبيبنا سيدنا محمد and وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. These days of Muharram also as an opportunity for us to remember those who strive to follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ even after his death. And one of those people, without a doubt, and we should not have a shadow of doubt in our heart, is the martyred grandson of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Sayyidina Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, or Sayyidina Hussein ibn Fatima ibn Muhammad ﷺ. So the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was martyred on the 10th of Ashura in an area of Iraq called Karbala, a place of Karb and Bala, a place of tragedy and tribulation. And like his older brother, Sayyidina al-Hasan, who too showed us the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Both of them sacrificed, even though their sacrifices came out in different ways. Sayyidina al-Hasan lived during the time of tribulation that was between his father, Sayyidina Ali ibn Talib, and the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidina Muawiyah, radiallahu anhum ajma'in, may Allah be pleased with them both. So our contention, we say Sayyidina Muawiyah. We say our master Muawiyah. Why? Because he was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ said, أَصْحَابِ كَالنُّجُومِ بِأَيِّهِمْ اقْتَدَيْتُمْ اهْتَدَيْتُمْ. My companions are like the stars. Whichever ones that you follow, you will be guided. So we say Sayyidina Muawiyah اجتهد وأخطأ فله أجر وسيدنا علي اجتهد وأصاب فله أجران. That Muawiyah made ijtihad, he tried to do the best that he can do with information available to him at the time, but nevertheless it didn't prevent him from making a mistake. And companions can make mistakes. And Sayyidina Ali also did his best, and we feel that his best was better than Muawiyah's best. And so he didn't make a mistake. So he has 2 rewards instead of 1 reward. Nevertheless, after the assassination of Ali, Karamallahu wajha, there was great strife and tribulation. The people of Hijaz, Mecca and Medina, they made their oath of fealty or allegiance to the son of Ali, Sayyidina al-Hasan, Bay'u. And the people of Syria gave their bay'ah already to Sayyidina Muawiyah. So at this point there's 2 large groups of Muslims opposing one another with 2 very large armies at odds. It would have been very easy for Sayyidina al-Hasan to say that I am the rightful Khalifa. I am the rightful ruler. The people of Medina, the people of Mecca, Muhajirin wal Ansar, who were the original companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they see that I am the one who has more right and responsibility in this particular position, and he could have chosen to contest for it. He could have done that. And probably he would have been successful at the end. Probably he would have been victorious. But at what cost? At what cost? At the destruction of the army of Muawiyah? At the cost of the destruction of Syria? Perhaps? At the destruction of the fabric of the Ummah? Perhaps? So instead of contesting it, he let it go. He reached a conclusion, an agreement with Muawiyah and said, you can have the Khilafah. I'd rather not have any blood spilt on my behalf on this day than even have 1 drop of blood spilled for me. And he gave up the Khilafah. And it was a lesson in us for the sanctity, the inviolability of human blood. That it should not be spilled, even in such a momentous thing as this. But he would not agree to that. And he said, it's better for him to be the Khilafah and we disagree, than for me to contest for it. And that was the example of Sayyidina al-Hasan. Sayyidina Hussein followed a similar example. When Muawiyah, before he dies, one of the things that was agreed with al-Hasan is that after the death of Muawiyah, Sayyidina al-Hasan would be the Khalifa after him. However, Sayyidina al-Hasan dies before Muawiyah unexpectedly. And so as a result, Sayyidina Muawiyah, as we said, اجتهد وأخطأ. He used his best judgment, but he made a mistake. One of the mistakes that he made is that he assigned his son to be the next Khalifa after him, breaking with the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, where it was not about a dynasty, it was not about being an heir, or the son, or the cousin, or the uncle inheriting the rule, but rather it would be something based upon who is best suited for it, who is best suited for that responsibility. So he broke with that tradition, and Yazid was in his place. And so Yazid, the son of Muawiyah, then expects the oath of fealty, expects the allegiance of all without question, also breaking with tradition. And it was based upon oppression and upon an oath of fealty that was imposed rather than solicited. And this was expected of especially the people of Medina, and especially of the heirs of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the people of his lineage. People like Sayyidina Hussein ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Zubair. These people were expected to give that oath of fealty. They refused. And they said, this is not the sunnah of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. This is not the way that he would have wanted it. And in that refusal, Sayyidina Hussein took a stand. He was not seeking power for himself. Don't read the stories where he was seeking power and he led an army and he wanted to overthrow Bani Umayyah. Because if that was the case, he would have called for a general nafir al-am. He would have called for a general call to arms. And he would have assembled all the people of Mecca and all of the people of Medina, which he could have done, and they would have followed him. He told them, don't come with me. Stay back. And then when he gets there, and he realizes that the support he might have expected in Iraq is no longer there, he starts on his way back. And he tells all those people who followed him on the way, stay back. This is not for you. Because he knew what was going to happen at the end of the day. And him and many of his family, they were martyred on that field that day in Karbala. Not for the spillage of blood, but to avoid the spillage of blood. But at the same time to take a principled stand, to show that oppression and tyranny cannot be allowed to thrive, and that those who are in a position of influence amongst us have the most responsibility to show that. So he didn't choose for everyone to die with him, but nevertheless they died with him. And though he may have wanted to avoid it, the fabric of the ummah was damaged that day. No question about it. The fabric of the ummah was probably irreparably damaged. But the situation could have been much, much worse than this. It could have been a split in the ummah. Even our basic understanding of Islam could have been lost. But Sayyidina Hussein, radiallahu anhu, and those who came before him, like Sayyidina Hassan, and all of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they knew they had to uphold the legacy of Muhammad ﷺ. So we mourn the loss of Sayyidina Hussein, but we also rejoice in that he took that principle stand, and that he made that sacrifice. And we, as people who understand the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we mourn in a way that would be sanctioned by the Prophet ﷺ, not in a way that would not be sanctioned by the Prophet. So we remember him, we recall him, we tell our children about him. He is not a martyr merely for Shiite Muslims, but he is a martyr for all Muslims. And he is someone that is mourned by all Muslims. And we don't submit to the narrative that the people of the Sunnah killed Sayyidina Hussein. These people were not people of the Sunnah. Those people on that field that day, how could the spillage of blood of the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which in actuality is the spillage of the Prophet's blood, it's from his blood, how can that be something of the Sunnah? It goes completely against the Sunnah. It has nothing to do with the Sunnah whatsoever. So we have to recognize that even amongst us, even amongst our own selves, Muslims, there are acts that are indefensible. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was the one who told us about this. And he even said to his companions, "Unsur akhaka zaliman aw mazluma." Help your brother, zalim aw mazlum. Whether they are oppressing or they're being oppressed. They said, Ya Rasulullah, hada al-mazlum. Ya Rasulullah, we know about the mazlum, the oppressed, how to help him. Amma zalim. How do we help the one who is oppressing? He said, Kufu an zulmi. Stop him from oppressing. But he did not remove, he did not negate the idea that they're still our brothers. Even the Khawarij who fought Sayyidina Ali tooth and nail, and they were the proto-ISIS or Daesh, the ones who came before Daesh and ISIS, but the same methodology, the same mentality. What did Sayyidina Ali say about them? إِخْوَانُنَا بَغَوْا عَلَيْنَا. They are our brothers and they transgressed against us. He did not remove Islam from them. He did not say they're not our brothers. Just like the Prophet ﷺ said, your brothers, help them. That means you may have to stop them. You may have to take arms against them. But it should never be based upon hatred and retribution and revenge. All of those three emotions are emotions of Satan, of Shaitan. Every act that he does, and every act that he wants a human being to do, will be based upon hatred and revenge and retribution. We don't have that. We have justice, we have compassion, we have mercy, and we have doing what is morally and ethically correct. That's what the Prophet ﷺ came to teach us, and that is what we should be imbibing within ourselves, and that is what should be teaching our children, our grandchildren, and all the generations to come. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد عدد خلقه وذكر نفسه ومداد عرشه ومداد كلماته واغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار وحينك بحلالك عن حرامك وطاعتك عن معصيتك وأمرنا بفضلك عن سواك وانصر إخواننا في كل مكان وانصر إخواننا في حلب المستضعفون المكروبون وانصرهم نصرا مؤزرا ونصرا عزيزا ونصرا طيبا برحمتك وجودك ومنك وفضلك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين. أقم الصلاة.